So last week, we talked about oneness. The book, the theme for this month is Seek the Common Good. So we started off with oneness to help us really get that no matter how many it looks like, there's only one of us here. And I admit I'm confused by that every time you move and I don't. So, I just moved, but wait. And it's the dilemma, it's the dance with our human awareness, our human perception. So the book that we're using this month is Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World by his brother Dalai Lama. And what he's talking about in the first part of this book is really posing the question of, is religion necessary for ethics? And it's an interesting conversation. There are a lot of people, surprising me how many people actually hold a belief that atheists can't possibly be ethical. Because for those folks, we have equated ethics with our version of God, which may or may not actually line up, depending on how we're using our interpretation of God. Underneath it comes the distortion of human thought. Because quite literally, ethics goes back to the Greek word ethos, which simply means an expression of your belief system. So no matter what is showing up in your life, by definition, it's your ethics. Now the challenge is that most of us equate ethics with morality, and we tag morality with our version of morality. Herein lies the challenge, because while for centuries, you turn it down a little bit, for centuries, we have been thinking that it's okay to oppress people in God's name. We have rationalized that it's okay to kill people in God's name, and that it's quite ethical to do so. Now, in terms of ethics being the ethos and the expression of one's values, well, that is in alignment with one's values. The challenge is how words change over time and how meaning changes over time. And so we become fractured and in conflict with one another when my values don't align with your values, and I want to demand that they do. And so the only way I know how to make that demand in human terms is through aggression. And then we're off and running. To really heal this, we have to go back to source. We have to go back to a very clear, undiluted understanding of who we really are. So if we double back to oneness, there's one source. There's not a bunch of different sources, there's one. Everything that we experience in form is this one materialized. It is absolutely unconditional, infinite possibility, formless. And then in its triune nature, it has a desire, it has an idea. That idea is impressed into the soul or the law, which only knows yes. The law is simply a space like soil of mechanical doing. At no point when you plant something is the soil ever going to pop it back up and say, plant something else. Not going to happen. It just receives it and goes about the business of growing it, whatever you put in there. That's what the soul does. That's what the law does. It simply receives the impress, the desire, call it thought, call it desire, call it whatever you want. It receives it, and it goes about the business of bringing it into form, into experience, into manifestation. And so, just like the one that is happening with, and we are a form of it, we are, now if you're not getting this, please get this. Look in the mirror sometime today, eyeball to eyeball, and say out loud, I am a brilliant idea in the mind of creation. Because that's what you are. Whatever this huge expanse of infinite possibility is, out of all the possibilities on the planet, it wants to know itself is you. How cool is that? Got a little Pentecostal there. I shan't apologize. It blows my mind when I realize that. When I let that sink in, that out of all of the choices the infinite could make, it chose me to know some part of itself that it can only know as me. The same thing is true about you. That's how amazing you are. That's how magnificent you are. That's how purposeful you are. That's how necessary you are. And in the culture, in the belief system of the one, doesn't that make us part of divine ethics? Doesn't that make us part of its value? Now, stay with me. Because the same thing that it is, you are. When it smiled you into being, it didn't leave out one drop of itself. So everything that it is, you have at your disposal. The same triune nature. Your beliefs, your thoughts, your desires are impressed into the law, and the law goes about creating them. It is never going to say,
Rafe, I'm not sure you really want to create that.
it's not going to happen. It just goes, got it. So if what is showing up in our lives is different than what we recognize that we want, we have to recognize what's creating that in order to shift it. And most of it is delusional. We're too quick to call it illusion instead of understanding that it's delusion. Delusion, here's the difference. Delusion is a belief that is accepted as true. Illusion is a belief that we're paying attention to, but we're still investigating because we're not sure it's really true. When you see a magician and it's an illusion, everything inside of you goes, that's not real. Because some part of you knows it's an illusion. Delusional thinking, we don't question. It's those deeply held beliefs that are so enculturated into us, we will defend them with our lives for no apparent reason other than we believe them. No investigation is necessary. Another way to look at it is karma, the karmic tendencies of humanity that have evolved over lifetimes and lifetimes. If the divine's only purpose in creation is to expand its experience, everything that has ever happened in form now is a part of the divine's experience. Yes?
Yes.
So then, as it creates out of that expanded experience, it creates with that expanded experience as part of its new creation. This is called evolution. The challenge is we don't take time sometimes to investigate and look back at, where did this come from? Where did it come from? This idea of supremacy in any form. Please hear me. I am talking about any form of supremacy. That any one expression of us is greater than the other. That's delusional thinking. It has to be. Because we are all perfectly equal forms of the divine. We're different. We're equal. Oneness does not equal sameness. Difference does not equal separation. We're all still one. Just like my liver cells are different than my heart cells. Thank goodness. And they're never confused about their role. Never once have I been taken to the hospital and been diagnosed with wayward cells. We're sorry, Mr. Ellis, but your kidney cells have decided to function as brain cells, and that's why you are confused. It's not going to happen, because my cells just show up and do what they're supposed to do. We have this thing called free will. And sometimes we show up and do things we're not supposed to do. It's not in the best interest of ourselves or one another. And if we're really going to practice compassion, it starts at home. It starts at home. We have a picture in our home that says, it's a saying from Ghana: the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. The healing begins there too. So the healing of our nation, of our world, begins in the home of its people. Where is the home? It's you. I want you to bring it down smaller than the house you live in. This is your home. This is where you live. And so we have to come to that. Am I, as a human, operating in alignment with the truth of my being? The divine in macrocosm, we know how it works. Am I, as a microcosm, literally as a representation of it? Am I operating the way it operates? Am I consciously aware and taking responsibility for what I put into the law? Am I responding to what shows up in form from that evolved experience of consciousness? Or am I still reacting from centuries ago? Because make no mistake, it's all available to us in the collective consciousness. That's the piece I think we forget, is those primal reactions are just as available to us in the collective consciousness as anything else. Because every thought that has ever been thunk, every belief that has ever been believed is there. For the divine to eliminate any point of experience would be to eliminate itself. It's not going to happen. So we can try to forget it, or we can be about the business of being aware of how we're using it. Being aware that there's that tendency to react. Take a breath. Now I'm going to respond. I have a ministerial friend that anytime she's in a meeting, she always makes sure she has a bottle of water, because every once in a while, internally in her head, when something comes up, she's like, let me just take a sip. See, some of you got that. Let me put something in my mouth before the wrong thing comes out. Create things that help you pause. Whatever it is for you. And we have got to figure out how to navigate cognitive dissonance. We have to. If we are going to heal ourselves and our community and our greater community and our world, we have got to find the courage, the tenacity, the willingness, and really base it all on the understanding that there's nothing there to hurt you, no matter how uncomfortable it feels, to navigate cognitive dissonance, to navigate an exploration of those beliefs that are so deeply held in consciousness, they're off limits to question. Because that's what's showing up as our cultural ethics. And some of them are anything but compassionate. Most of them are based in hierarchical supremacy. They're based in the spoils of war, if you will. Century after century of establishing who wins. And what I submit to you this morning is, as long as we live in a culture of who wins, the answer is always going to be nobody. Nobody. Because if we are equal, who are we competing against? Winning is a part of competition. And if I am one with you, to compete against you, to rail against you, I first have to be in conflict with me. And that's the piece that I'm offering you to look at today. It's real easy and you know, ramping it up again. I'm running for president. No, I am running for president. No, I'm running for president. Okay, here it comes. And where's our focus? For most of us, it immediately goes to who that is speaking. And instead of identifying how we're the same, how we're united, what we share in common, we start ripping their character apart. Know this. As you rip their character apart, yours is first. You couldn't rip theirs apart unless you ripped yours apart. That's the truth of oneness. Why does it feel like crap to do that? Because you're involved in the process. You cannot hurt someone else without hurting you. And you can't uplift someone else without uplifting you. So start there. When something comes up, instead of pointing out here, go inward. What belief is operating in you that just might be a delusion? That just might be a deeply held belief that maybe was never true? Your ego will tell you that makes your whole existence a lie. That's where cognitive dissonance comes from. It is a threat so deep that it says, everything that I believe myself to be is a lie. And so we don't even know our identity anymore. Is that a bad thing? Maybe not. Maybe the identity I've settled for needs to go. Maybe I can't be or know who I really am while I'm busy playing small Rafe. And maybe there's a way to meet with our ego and let it know that we love it. Thank it for keeping us alive. Thank it for being in this body and anchoring our physical aspect. And you ain't in charge no more. Have that conversation with your ego. You're a part of my identity. You're not my identity. And I know that stresses you out. But you're going to get used to it because we're going to keep coming back to this over and over again, me and you. To have that conversation with yourself. Because if you'll do that, you won't worry so much about what other people are doing. And you're part of the healing process when you do that. Because every time one of us shifts, guess what shifts? The whole collective consciousness. We give everybody something new to explore when we do that. Let's take this into prayer. Breathing, I recognize it as the breath of the one breathing me, the infinite, the only source of creation. Regardless of whether it is called God, Buddha, Allah, Yud-He, Vav-He, is irrelevant. It never limits its being to one title. It is that singular source of absolute consciousness out of which, within which, by which, every expression of itself is brought into form. And so being in form, I must be it in form. Speaking to other forms, I must be speaking to it in form. All one. Brilliantly individualized to expand its experience of itself. And yet, the common goodness is itself as itself. And so I speak a word of realization for that we each are coming to a higher understanding, a higher embrace, a deeper livingness, beingness of the truth of who we have always been, are now, and will always be. One infinite expression of divinity. Grateful to know this is how it works. Grateful to know that there's not a thing I need to do to make it happen, because it happens. Period. Grateful, grateful, grateful. And so in this gratitude, I release my word into that activity of love and law that has already made it so, only knows yes, and says it into infinity. And so it is. So it is.